Hello, everybody. Welcome to Resilience+Rise, the podcast where we transform adversities into triumph and illuminate the extraordinary potential within all of us. I'm your host, Thomas Carrier, a resilience coach, a ultra marathoner, and a firm believer in your next most powerful chapter. This podcast is a companion to my upcoming book, Resilience+Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash Your Marathon of Life Mindset, coming the first quarter of 2025. Here we amplify stories of hope, perseverance, and success to inspire your journey. Today, in Resilience+Rise, I explore the revolutionary and the spiritual act of leadership with Dr. James B. Golden. Dr. James is a transformational speaker, a leadership healer, and an organizational strategist. James helps leaders and organizations from to thrive from inside out. He believes there is an element of growth in everyone, despite the challenges that we face. There is a lot of resilience in his teachings, in what he does. So, without wasting much of time, let's directly jump in and say, welcome, Dr. James Golden. Welcome to
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
my pleasure, Doctor. So, my first question would be a pretty simple one. Who are you?
Wow. Okay. Nice question. I am a child of God, and I am, I am of this earth, and everybody here. I feel a deep connection to everything and our entire universe. In more practical terms, I am a artist and a thinker, and I believe that I'm a life alchemist. And so I spend a lot of time as a consultant, as a coach for people, as an educator, and as a poet, helping to create justice on this planet and to help us to evolve as human beings so that we can all love each other, we can love this planet, and we can become who we were always meant to be.
That's a deep purpose because there, what I've just heard is a sense of surety that this is what you want to do. But for me, thanks for putting out that element about who you are. But for me, when you talk about purpose, there is always a pain through which the purpose comes up.
Yeah.
So, were you always a poet? Or did you always want to be in the shoes of the leadership? Or were there some stories, or I would say, were there some challenges that pivoted you towards the higher purpose of who you are and who you continue to be at this point of time?
Yeah, definitely. My whole life has been filled with challenges, and I used to be very mad at God, and I would be upset about the amount of grief that I felt that I had. It was not just the loss of people who were important to me. From the time I was 7 years old through recently, I've lost so many people who have transitioned from here tragically or untimely. And I've had to really unpack those experiences throughout the years. I think I've always been called to leadership and healing. The earliest story I can remember from my mom is that I would get all the neighborhood kids together at my house, or after church, I call over my friends, and I was emulating my parents, who were both social activists in the Monterey County area. They both were leaders in the NAACP and the Kiwanis and at local schools. And so I would make a table, and I'd make my own conference room, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be a leader. What I found was that leadership, it really needed to become a part of who I am, in helping myself, helping to lead myself out of this really dark night of the soul, with this heavy amount of grief and losing, not only my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, and my instructors, and I I went all the way up through losing my partner of 13 years, who was like the love of my life. And very tragically, 5 days before George Floyd was murdered, and then to turn around 4 months later and lose one of my best friends to COVID related illness, and to turn right around and lose my sister. And just people, it felt like there was this constant loss in my life. And I had to lead myself to a place where I could take those broken pieces, or take the base metals, as we will call them in alchemy, and turn them into gold, something that can heal this planet and can help other people.
Out of the deepest pains came the medicine or the slab. So did it make? How did it happen that that transformation? What I just heard was yes, from a very young age you were already building up, but in the last 4 years, when these tragic events took place, that would have shaken you up because yes, people losing somebody, death is a natural process, but
Yeah.
losing people who are in untimely or somebody who's closed, which you just shakes up your entire believable living. How did you make that? How did you turn this grief into a powerful ally that you strove to be a healing balm to the community or the world around?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of different things that really helped me. The first was I needed to take a really deep look at my soul, and I spent a lot of time prior to Terrence's death really being focused on my career and becoming an award-winning poet, and being able to speak on all of these stages, and to provide my thought through articles and different things like that, that I was neglecting my spirit and my soul. I had always gone to church. I was reading the Bible, and reading sacred texts from other religions, but I did yoga and I meditated, but for some reason it felt like what I really needed to do was to dig into my soul and my spirit, and to really understand what are the parts of me that are hurt, that are harmed, that are feeling scared, that are anxious, and that are grieving. And I had to find out what those were. And then through the process of journaling, through the process of asking myself really difficult questions and being honest with myself about it, through a lot of crying, through a lot of being angry and feeling those lower level emotions, I just took a list and I started to take care of them one by one. I started forgiving people that I needed to forgive. I started to open myself up to who I truly am. I started to accept, my all the dark parts that I had, and it really brought me to a place of being able to actually pour into people fully and authentically. I think part of what I had to realize is that the same things that I felt broke me were the same tools that would liberate me. And the
Wow.
grief that I experienced, I know I don't fully know what God was doing, but I know now that the empathy that it created in me, it has allowed me to connect deeply in organizations that I work in, or with people that I mentor, or in the work that I do speaking and writing. It has allowed me to be more vulnerable and to connect to the person that's in front of me or that's reading what I'm writing.
So, guys, just a pause over here is that I'll be posting Dr. James's connection or his website, etc., down below in the comments. Have a look onto it. But there might be somebody who may not reach out because they feel that at times their hurting may be different from what you have gone through. And here I'm not generalizing nor I'm taking away the hurt and the pain that they're going through. But when people go through grief, whether it's the loss of their loved ones or whether it's the loss of their own self or whether it's the loss of different elements in their life,
Yeah.
what are the suggestions that what are the suggestions that comes to your mind that could help them to work towards being whole again?
Yeah. You said, what are the traditions,
What are the suggestions?
the suggestions? It's going to depend for everybody. And that's why I think it is important for us to connect, and it is important for us to talk through things. That was one of the things that helped me, was being able to, one, go to a therapist. Now, I'm not a therapist, but I do coach people. I do put them in directions and give them different tools that I've seen. There have been many books that have lifted me. I've been a writer since I was 6 years old. And so when I struggle with something, I try to find a book that I think I feel called to, or a writer or author that lifts me. For me, I didn't realize that the person I called my favorite author throughout my entire life was the first book that I felt like when I read The Alchemist, that this is my book. Like I loved reading it, but I was so young and I had no idea what I was reading. I just loved the language and I thought it was a great story. And then after I went through, I started rereading Coelho's works, and they took on a different meaning for me. And they helped me to really connect with different things that I hadn't thought about before. And they helped me recontextualize the pains. And so a lot of people, I tell them, let's find the right books for you. Let's find manuals for you. The other thing that is really important holistically is to look at ourselves as a whole person. And so I had to be okay with understanding that I can't let one part of my being, one part of my spirit, of my soul, suffer. That all of this is important in order for me to be able to move forward and to change this world. And I needed to make sure that my body, my mind, my spirit, and my soul were all being poured into at the same rate. And
Hmm.
that helped me to literally become centered and to feel this force field around me that makes me fearless now, where I know exactly what I'm here to do on this planet, and I'm going to do it, and I'm nourishing myself. So that's really what I did, and it's just a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of being open and a little bit of listening to the sages and the wise guys and ladies that we've had forever, but then writing about it.
Journaling. Journaling is actually a lot of people they don't consider journaling as one of the biggest of the healing. Uh, it's just there right in front of you. All you need to do is pick up a pen and start writing it. And in fact, this my book. There are around 26 chapters, and most of the chapters, I would say, practically most of the, yeah, they talk about journaling, about the different challenges, whether it is about time management, whether it is about being motivated or being disciplined, or whether it is through the pitfalls you have been having. So it is all about, that's a beautiful element about, you may not have, and to the listeners, you may not have all the skills, but then yes, you have got the skill to just pick up a pen and write on paper what have you have been going through. It might not
It's
give
the
you.
most important thing we can do. And the reason why people don't do it is because it's scary and it's hard. It's very difficult to write something that you know is real, because there's no point in, I mean, I guess there is a point in writing fiction, because a lot of us do it and we make a lot of money, but there's the real point of being able to take out your pen and to write until your subconscious taps in and you start to see who you are on a page. And then what's even harder is to read it back to yourself and to say, like, this is really what's going, this is really my perspective. But there's so much beauty that comes from that. Once you're able to unpack and look at, where am I having thinking errors? Where am I um, being selfish? Or where am I not looking at this from other perspectives? Challenging yourself, loving on yourself, being like, I'll write things sometimes and I'm like, who wrote that? Like, that's profound. And like, it's in my soul. So there's so much that can lift you from that process.
Beautiful. Here, of course, I've known, I've gone through your website and a few of your writing, etc. You have impacted many people. But then when you look back, have there been some people that you have reached out to and they have changed?
You know, yes, I, and you're talking about people that I've worked with.
Yes.
I have so many of these stories, and they're from throughout my life. I hear the one that sticks out to me is, I call people who work with me my apprentices, and I believe that just sharing our lives together, that we're both, we're all learning from each other. There's no big me. I'm just, I'm not that smart. I'm a regular guy who wants to change the world, and I want to be able to share that with people. And so, thinking about Fasi, who is somebody who I've known since she first graduated from college, and she got her BA. She had no idea what she wanted to do, but she knew she wanted to work in public health somehow. So I hired her for one of my grant programs, and I got to spend the last 7 years lifting her up as a leader, teaching her how to become more emotionally resilient as a leader, uh, showing her the parts of her that she may not see, being a mirror at times, holding her when she's in tears because her staff went off on her, being able to support her through losses that she had, the loss of her grandparents. I asked her when I started Golden Global, I said, can you tell me a little bit about what it was like working with me? And don't tell me what you think I want to hear. And she said, there's nobody like you. She said that, you opened doors for me, and not just in my career, but in my life. And to me, I just got chills throughout my whole body, because that's what matters. People have done that for me throughout my life, including her. And it's really reciprocal. So that is how I see it. And I have these stories with a whole bunch of people, and I watch them move on, and they become these giant leaders, you know, taking over federal programs and working in public health and education and art, and to see them continue to work on their spirituality, to see them continue paths towards equality and social justice. That is what it feels like. That's what makes me feel like this is a life well lived.
Super. Super. Um, just before the podcast started, we were talking that what really made me to reach out to you, apart from the fact that I saw senior credentials. Guys, he's got around 4 degrees and he's still learning to learn for something more. God bless him. But the element is that there are moments wherein, for me, one of my ideologies is that ideology is that We all are angel with one wing. It's only when we
Mhm.
hold another we learn to fly higher.
Wow.
And again, you also said another element about getting the community. For me, it is comes to the point is that there are no strangers, only friends we have not met,
Yes.
and that's how we grow. And what I've heard from you about the purpose, what you have gone through, whether it is the challenges, whether it is a loss near and dear, but moving to a point wherein you believe that help me to see this grief so that I can be a help to the others who are grieving.
Yeah.
And that, Dr. James, I've seen something which is transformational about the way you work around with people. And again, going through the website and seeing what you're doing, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Which gets me to the next point is that are there any projects that you're doing currently which is very close to you that you would allow the people to, if not just know about, but also if they can get involved, what would they that be?
Yeah, I'm always working on a million projects, and that's why I'm always having to decompress and take walks. I think the big thing for me right now is I feel that Golden Global is a divine project, and so I'm pouring my heart and soul into it. I built a college. I've written award-winning books, but this is the project that I think I was sent here to do. I see myself as wanting to lift the community in a few different ways. One is through the macro level of being able to give service projects. So a lot of people come to us and they work with us on service projects for people who are unhoused. And then there's another group which we call them leaders, and these are business leaders or leaders in their industry. And what I teach them through different modalities, coaching, I run workshops with organizations and help to get organizations on this servant transformational leadership path. And the last is with individuals who are hurting. Some people might have mental health issues, they might have substance use issues. I help them get into treatment. I help them identify what's happening. And I'm not a clinician. I've been in healthcare, behavioral health for 20 years, but I have a large network of people that I connect them with. And I keep rooting for them and I keep them going. So that's really where my energy is at right now. I have a podcast that is every Thursday on LinkedIn and YouTube called the Golden Light Academy Talk Series. And it's just what we're doing. It's talking to great people who are trying to change the world and who have this philosophical insight. And I'm new on like social media, so I'm on Instagram now and YouTube, and it's my first time on there, so it's very interesting to get into that arena. But that's really what I'm trying to do: bring some light to this world. However, I can do that. That's what I'm going to do.
As they say, great minds think alike, and that maybe that's the reason I connected with you is that if we can shine a light on another human and help them in the next step of life, that becomes much more easier. Just being mindful of the time, is there anything that you would like to tell the audience in general or listening?
Yeah, I think that what I want people to know is that regardless of what you're going through, how you feel, what you've been through, that healing is possible and it's a path. And I want people to know that we can genuinely love this planet and we can love each other. It's not something that is a myth. Love is real, it's revolutionary, and it's an action. And if we start to do that, we will see a world that is more equal, that is more accepting, where we can make money and sit on the beach, but we can also know that our brothers and sisters who are like us, that they're going to be okay. And that is the best way to leave this planet, is knowing that you were a part of a love revolution and that you helped people along the
Wow,
way.
Fantastic. That sounds absolutely impactful. But just as a parting note, what I would say is that, guys, we have just heard Dr. James talk, and where he talks about his college, where he's shaping the future with behavioral health leadership. He brings leadership, development, wellness strategy, and the social impact consulting to the organizations on the whole. I've just heard his belief in the power of soul centered leadership, emphasizing equity, ethical practice, and most importantly, why are we over here? It's all about human connections. With this, Doctor, I would like to conclude today's session. And thank you so